why is it so important and we make sure that everybody is getting enough is because protein is basically the building blocks for all of the good parts of your body. So it's super important for building and repairing pretty much all the tissues in our body, especially our muscles, right? So we always hear about eating protein and you'll get big muscles. Well, it is pretty much true. So
Okay, we are live, and I'm just going to talk even if I get the feedback. Welcome, everyone, to our Tuesday live. Today, we're going to be talking about protein and the importance of it for recovery, muscle building, and all good and great things. Do you want to start us off, Jilisa?
Sure. We'll get right into it because got a quick time crunch today. So protein, I would say, is probably it's like the most important thing you could probably focus on in terms of your nutrition. I would say 99% of our clientele works on protein when we start because it's something that almost everybody can do a little bit better in getting enough of in each day. So why do we make sure this is so important, or why is it so important and we make sure that everybody is getting enough is because protein is basically the building blocks for all of the good parts of your body. So it's super important for building and repairing pretty much all the tissues in our body, especially our muscles, right? So we always hear about eating protein and you'll get big muscles. Well, it is pretty much true. So really important when you're working out or if you have the goal of gaining lean muscle, super important to get enough protein in that. But it also does things with like hormones. It's important part of synthesizing hormones. It's really important part of our immune system and our metabolism. So aside from just helping us feel fuller longer and having like that steady energy throughout the day, it does all that important stuff on the inside too. So we really like to concentrate on people getting enough quality and quantity protein in throughout their day. So I would say 99% of people are good at getting it at supper, but it's not always as big a priority at breakfast or lunch for people. So oftentimes we take quite a bit of time focusing on that first. And it's incredible to see like the difference it makes in people's energy, even in their progress with building strength or endurance. That kind of thing, if their goals happen to do with their fitness, but also just general like fullness, it makes a huge difference for that and just that prolonged energy. So oftentimes people are like pretty heavy on the carbs during breakfast and lunch, but switching some of that to protein can really help them regulate hunger cues and just have more of that steady state energy throughout the day. So those are some of the basics of why we really like to focus on protein.
Yeah, and I was going to say some applicable things coming out of that is that I know I talked with a lot of people and a lot of clients, and they say like they struggle to come up with ideas of what should I have for protein at breakfast. That's one of the biggest things. They're like, I don't feel like waking up and eating a steak first thing in the morning. Plus, that would get really expensive too if you did that every morning. So if you depends on what you like, I guess. Like eggs can be decent. They got a lot more. They're more of a fat, I would say. They have more fat in them calorie wise than protein, but there is still protein in those eggs. A lot of people do egg whites in the morning as well, or Greek yogurt. That's been one of my go-tos for a really long time. Greek yogurt, you can get actually pretty decent Greek yogurt just from Superstore. I think it's the PC brand yogurt. It's like 18 grams of protein and only 2 or 3 grams of sugar or something like that. Like that's what the kind of the ratio you want. You want way more protein in there than sugar. A lot of people go and see Greek yogurt and it'll still be pumped full of sugar, or there might be more grams of protein than grams of sugar, but you want to look for, that's just something to look for, I guess, in your Greek yogurt. And a couple ideas. I know you have a protein oat mix or something, Jilisa, that you like to do all the time as well. So there's lots of different things that you can do that aren't just meat, right? For mornings anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. It's dependent on the person's taste or what they like or what they have time for in the morning. But there's always creative ways to get protein in so long as you are prepared. I think protein is the hardest one to have just like to grab and go, because often it takes a little bit of time to prepare. Unlike like fruit, which would be a carb. So it does take a little bit more work, which is why sometimes I think people lack it. A big question that I always get is like, do I have to have protein powder or do I have to supplement with protein powder? And my answer most of the time is food first, supplement second. So if there's just no way you can get enough protein in your day from food, then yeah, it is probably a good idea to supplement with a bit of protein. Or if you are someone who super struggles to gain muscle and that's your overall goal, then yes, protein powder maybe is a good option for that. And it is really nice just because it's portable and easy to make and easy to remember to bring with you places. So yeah, if you're getting most of your protein from a powder or from a supplement, I would say you're probably missing out on some of the benefits of actual food protein. We can look at trying to make changes in how you prepare your food, making time for that, figuring out portable ways to bring it with you, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind too, is there are some really good protein powders out there if that's like a needed option, but food first.
Yeah, I agree. And it's talking about protein as a macronutrient. Last week we talked about carbohydrates, right? Um, Protein would be one of three. Fats, carbs, and protein are the three we look at. And this is usually our keystone habit, like Jilisa was saying at the start, that we give to our clients. If we track someone's nutrition for a little while, we'll usually see they're low on protein. And what that does is when you add protein, it actually leaves less room for that more, addictive type food that can leave you not feeling as good. And we mentioned on the last Facebook Live here that it's really hard to overeat protein, right? You're not going to sit down with 5 steaks like you would with 3 bags of chips, as an example. I'm not saying you can't have bags of chips sometimes or some chips sometimes, but there's actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom and Jaleesa, thermogenesis, right? Right? You actually burn more calories when you eat protein compared to other nutrients. Right? It takes a lot to digest that, and you're burning more calories, and more muscle mass you gain via protein, and you get muscle mass from other macronutrients too. The more muscle mass you gain, the more calories you burn, the more your metabolism increases. So that there's so many amazing benefits to protein. And if you're just looking to start somewhere with nutrition, it's really easy, is add more protein into your day.
I was going to say, I've worked with a few people before where they just switched the ratio a little bit, or they like actually ate maybe a couple hundred calories more each day. They just added in more protein, and they kind of were at a stalling point where they weren't going anywhere with they wanted weight loss. They weren't going anywhere, and switched that ratio or had a little more protein, and then they started, you know, knocking off some pounds. And then likewise for gaining muscle as well. If that's a goal of yours too, you need to be, I think from what I remember, it's between like 1 and 2 grams per kilogram of body weight is kind of like the happy range of what you would want to be at for consumption wise. And if we're not in that range, it depends on what your goals are too. Yeah, if you want to gain more muscle, you're probably going to need to eat a little bit more. But that's kind of the range that I've always looked at for if you're wondering how much should I be eating. That's roughly the amount.
Yeah.
Well, or the hand method. Don't forget the hand method.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I don't often recommend tracking, but for the right person or for the right reasons, it can be super handy. So oftentimes if people are just getting into nutrition and just learning, it can be really helpful to track, just because it's often like shocking how little protein a lot of people are eating. So if you track for say like a week or two, what you typically would eat, it's usually a pretty good eye opener that like, wow, most like a lot of people that I've seen just starting typically are maybe like 80% carbs. And they're like, okay, this is probably why I don't feel awesome all the time, or why I don't have energy, or, those highs and lows, or can't build muscle, all those things. And it's like, okay, let's just work on adding a little more protein. And eventually, if you can kind of get into routine with it, it's much easier. And I don't recommend tracking forever, but yeah, when you can just do that initial little bit just to see what your typical days look like of your protein intake, it can be like really, yeah, really eye-opening and an important part of just making sure you have healthy and balanced meals.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Jilisa. And if you need to hop off, Jilisa, Tom and I can chat for a little
Yeah,
while too.
but
Um,
thanks.
yeah, and even talking about tracking and stuff like that, we try to stay away from blanket statements with anything. So Jilisa predominantly works like her specialty is working with people who have kind of a fear of food. They're feeling controlled by food. So when you hear Jaleesa talk about she doesn't recommend tracking for most of her clients, that's the reason why, is because it can become a control thing, right? It can become a fear-based thing. Jaleesa works a lot with people trying to get them to still be healthy, lose weight if they need to, without being controlled by food and still enjoying all the good foods in life. And so going back to a little bit about the protein, it's good for hormones, right? Growth hormone, which ladies and gentlemen can both benefit from. I know ladies, usually it's like something you think you should stay away from, but no, it's a very important part of bone health and everything like that, right, Tom?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, there's, I mean, a ton of other things that you get from protein. Like we talk about, this may be going too sciencey, but there are a certain amount of amino acids in our body that are called essential amino acids, which are the building blocks for your muscles and your bones and all that lean tissue that you can only get from protein. Like your body does not create them on its own. So we need to have protein. And I really like what Jaleesa said about food first, then supplement. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
in the word. Like supplement is meant to supplement an already healthy diet, right?
Yep.
If you're not getting enough of a certain nutrient through the diet that you regularly have, you might need to supplement. A lot of people, I don't know, for us in Canada, we need, vitamin D and quite
Yeah.
often fish oils and quite often some people maybe some iron or whatever you need, but that's meant to supplement a diet that's already pretty solid. And so I know you talked about it a while too. It's like if you can't do the simple things consistently, don't worry about all this other nitpicky stuff. And that's where I think the value of that one-on-one approach does come in, because like Jaleesa
Yeah.
was saying, like when she's talking about her clients, like it is a one-on-one conversation. Like, do we need to track for a week to see if this, like, to see where we're at, or is that something that is like we don't want to touch yet because it could be something that sends somebody spiraling and gets too obsessive over the tracking aspect of
Right.
it. So that is like whatever we mention here are tools that we have used with certain clients, but it's not necessarily, yeah, it's not a blanket statement that this is what we would try for everybody per se, right? um, we do know that protein is important. I guess that's a blanket statement. Protein is important for
Yes.
everybody,
Yeah.
but
It's a building block, 100%
how
building block.
we handle it with each client maybe slightly different.
Yeah, based on their goals, based on where they are in their life, based on time constraints. Because when we talk about supplementation, I mean, there will be a certain group of our members that I would use more supplementation for in terms of protein powders. So, for example, I played hockey my whole life and I had a hard time gaining weight. So, even if I ate, and I would legit eat 5 meals a day, like full meals a day, I still needed some extra protein, some extra carbs. So, I needed to supplement. And supplementation can also be used as in emergency type situations. Like if once a week you need to replace your protein that you would get with whole foods with supplementation, then that's okay. But if it turns into like every single day type thing, we're missing the point of what nutrition programming should be or nutrition coaching. And that's why I 100% agree with you, Tom. If you think about it, you, me, and Jaleesa, we probably in total have 30 plus years of experience with nutrition. And even we have to navigate all the information out there, right? It's really confusing. So that's why it's important to have someone who knows these building blocks in terms of macronutrients, but also building blocks in what creates a good program, in what creates a good mindset around these things, because it can get overwhelming and kind of put you on different paths that aren't going to lead you to the results you want.
Yeah, well, we talk about it all the time too. We get shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
Lots of different things. You see this, so I'll try that, or this, so I'll try that, because that's supposed to get me there faster. But sometimes it just takes having that 20,000-foot view from somebody who's not looking at the world through your eyes and saying like, no, this is what I need you to focus on right now, because this is what I know is going to help get you there. It might not get you there tomorrow, but it's what we need to do to build these foundational habits and solid blocks really to keep you moving forward where you say you want to go. So
100%. So I think we can finish off with a couple of quick tips. Mine would be ways to have easily accessible protein, because it's hard, right? I mean, you think carbs, you think fats, you can have nuts for fats close by, you can have fruit for carbs, but protein's difficult. So pretty inexpensive way to do it is you buy steaks and you cook your own beef jerky. You get a dehydrator. I think there's some on Amazon. If someone wants the link, I can send you one. Or you can actually put your stove on really low and cook it for like 6 hours. Same thing, same kind of idea. Another one is to buy those pre-made rotisserie chickens and just kind of take pieces off throughout the day. Or pre-cook eggs, like hard-boiled eggs, so you can have them with you. Just don't forget them in your pocket or something.
Yeah. I was gonna say for me, like the morning Greek yogurt and berries has been like a super easy, quick go-to. That's super quick. And then we do a lot of whatever we make for supper. We usually try to make enough for leftovers for lunch the next day. That's super. And then you're not eating the same thing all the time, but it is nice and quick for lunch to just grab a pre-made thing and then grab it for the next day. And then there was one more quick one. I forget what it is. Maybe it'll come to me before the end, but there are ways, of course, of making quicker protein that don't take forever, or just I guess batch cooking a few, and cutting it up. And how people like cut up their vegetables, and then it's way easier to eat when you have vegetables pre-made or pre-cut. Same thing with protein. If you like make a chicken breast or something, cut it into slices, put that in the fridge, you grab a slice of chicken every once in a while or whatever.
Yeah.
Lots of things like that, little tricks like that.
Tricks and tips. If anyone needs help with this, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to do that for you. We have a free nutrition ebook that if you comment below with nutrition, we'll be sure to send it to you. Thanks everyone for joining.